I'll just quickly go over what the schedule is going to be as I post the agenda in the chat. I'm going to give a little intro to Shut Down Creech, and then we're going to watch a video from 6 experienced creatures and hear about their experiences there, why they go there. Then we're going to hear from Wright, who's from Veterans for Peace and Code Pink. And then we're going to watch another short film, and then we're going to open it up to the panel, and then we're going to have a Q&A. So Shut Down Creech has been going on for about 12 years, and it's a campaign to end the U.S. global drone terror program through use of nonviolent action at Creech Air Force Base, which is located just north of Las Vegas. And what has started out as a small group effort has really grown into a twice-year mobilization at Creech, which is now co-sponsored by CODEPINK and Veterans for Peace. And our program is going to be divided into 4 different parts. We're going to begin with those testimonies that I mentioned, and then the panel, and then we are going to have that Q&A. And so I am going to actually go ahead and start our little video we have from some great speakers about their experience at Shut Down Creech.
Hello, my name is Vera Anderson and I am from Las Vegas, Nevada. And for me, it has meant a lot to be able to go and join everyone who goes to Shut Down Creech in the fall, because it gives me a chance to use my voice about some of the injustices that happen within our country and within our military. For me, it's really important to be able to say this is wrong, especially when what I am using my voice for is not something that's seen in everyday life. It's not seen in the news. You don't see it really on Twitter or Instagram. So for me, in order to help others know and be aware of what's going on, I have to use my voice in order to see that follow through, so others can also be aware. I didn't even know what was going on at Creech Air Force Base until about 2014, after my first Sacred Peace Walk. And I was actually walking with some women from Code Pink, and someone was sharing with me what happens at Creech, and I was just like, no way, like a drone? I thought those were just like toys that people play with. And it's like, no, they're actually using these flying birds to drop bombs on people. If there's going to be a media outlet out there, I want them to know that this is wrong. If there's going to be people driving into the base because they work there, I want them to know that I am here because this is something that we have to change. Just because we have the technology to do something does not mean that we should be using that technology. Just because something has been done for so long does not make it right. Just because something has been done for so long does not mean that it does not need to change. So this is why it's so important for me to go to Shut Down Creech and use my voice at Creech Air Force Base. And I'm always grateful for Code Pink and all of the people who use their voices down there every single year.
I'm Shirley Tung from Phoenix, Arizona. First of all, I'm against. I'm a person for nonviolence and against all wars, and so especially one where the enemy is sight unseen, 3,000 miles away from a computer. So I just feel that that type of warfare is absolutely horrendous. And then on top of that, there's plenty of collateral damage, children, wedding parties, funerals, and it kind of coincides with what I do anyway at Las Vegas because of the nuclear test site, where the Shoshone land is taken by the federal government, and that's been going on for years and years, even longer than what Creech has been doing so to at least conscientize the rest of the world who doesn't seem to even know what drones are and the devastation that it has caused. And it's kind of seemed like, I mean, it is unfair warfare because you're not even facing the enemy. You can't even see their face. And sit at 3,000 miles away and kill someone, that's atrocious.
My name is Michael Kerr. I am 72 and a U.S. Army veteran who served in Korea. When I wrote letters to Congress concerning the Korean dictator Park Chung-hee, the U.S. military, without notice, removed me back to the U.S. at the demands of the Korean government. Now, for the past 8 years, I have protested and risked arrest at both Beale and Creech Air Force bases. Why? Using drones to terrorize and kill civilians in countries we are not at war with is a horrendous war crime and against all international law. Please support and join me and others in our efforts to expose the truth and stop my country's war crimes. I give special thanks to the courageous whistleblowers Daniel Hale, Chelsea Manning, Edward Snowden, along with journalists Glenn Greenwald and Julian Assange. I thank you.
Hi, my name is Susan Witka. I live in San Francisco, California. Why do I go to the southern beautiful desert of Nevada for a week? Shut Down Creech. I go to break the silence and the secrecy of the continuing joystick terrorism and cruelty that originates here in the belly of the beast, aka Creech Air Force Base, which occupies and poisons the land of the Western Shoshone Nation. I keep going back to Shut Down Creech for an exciting week of community and creativity. We wake up before the dawn with the moon still in the sky, millions of stars lighting our way to set up the large, colorful banners along the highway leading to the base. I call this a public art show for hundreds of bumper to bumper employees as they begin their workday inside of Creech, as well as the general public driving by. All the messages on these beautiful banners connect the dots. They state not just the war and peace theme, but the environmental devastation that these killer drones, this base, brings. We connect the dots to the economic devastation causing the social justice devastation in our country here at home, the war at home. And lastly, I can say that I go down to Creech for personal growth. From leaving, I always am full of all the experiences that I've had there, including our tradition of going out to the desert to find the wild horses.
My name is Wright, and I am a Vietnam veteran, combat vet, and I became a conscious objector while I was in Vietnam. I am originally from Texas. That's my birth state, and I have been a member of Veterans for Peace since 1988. I've been going to Creech, Shut Down Creech action for probably about 7 years, I think, and I'm real happy to be able to participate. Myself, I come into Shut Down Creech to lend support to my brothers and sisters and to bear witness to the continuing American policy of economic genocide and ecocide here in North America and the rest of the world. American ecocide reaches into the heavens. As long as I am able to show up, I will continue to do so. 20+ veterans die each day by suicide. Surviving combat veterans have moral wounds and injuries. I encourage veterans, active and inactive, to join us. at Creech Air Force Base. We are a group of elders who are grandparents. We come from all different faiths. We come for our children and our own families, the homeless, the people that are needlessly locked up. And I want to leave you with a prayer poem. When sun leaves at dusk, it makes a doorway. We have access to ancestors, to eternity. Breathe out, ask for forgiveness. Let all hurts and failures go. Let them go. That's Joy Harrow, Poet Laureate of the United States, 2019. And once again, I thank you, all my brothers and sisters that show up, and all the people that drive by on the highway. I also throw out forgiveness to the people on the base that continue the atrocities that are going on, that they're causing, disrupting people's lives.
Okay, Dave Patterson here, Veterans for Peace. Why do I keep going back year and year again at Shut Down Creech? Well, 50 years ago, I joined the military voluntarily and enlisted in the Air Force and proceeded to help them disrupt the lives of untold numbers of people, terrorizing many, many more. Because of that, I carry a deep regret right here. And you know, those people at Creech, they're no different than I was. They're young, they're being told a pack of lies. Yes, they're terrorizing people and killing innocent people. But I happen to feel, from my experience, that they are questioning what they're doing maybe on a daily basis. Is it right? Is it wrong? Is it legal? Is it not? Those are the people I think that we can connect with. So I want them to stop killing people. Yeah, and I don't want them to be burdened the way I'm burdened at my age. What I like to do is stand on the street corner as people are coming to work. I get to look them in the eye when they're coming in. I want them to see my face full of remorse. I want them to think about what they're doing. It's personal for me, you know. My message to them is go back, man. It's the wrong way. So why don't you come and join us at Creech, Shut Down Creech? Maybe you can help us be successful. Get them to quit. Thank you.
Are going to move on. I'm going to introduce some of our panelists here for our discussion. First, I'm going to introduce Garett Reppenhagen, who is the Executive Director of Veterans for Peace, which is a global organization of military veterans and allies whose collective efforts are to build a culture of peace by using their experiences and lifting their voices to inform the public of the truest causes of war and the enormous costs of war, with an obligation to heal the wounds of wars. So, Garett, if you...
Great. Thank you, Allie. Thank you, CODEPINK, for hosting this. Thanks for all the creatures for your excellent and persistent work on shutting down drone warfare and grounding drones. And thanks for Veterans for Peace and all the other activists that come out to Creech all the time. But today I want to pay special attention to Colonel Ann Wright, who on her birthday has decided to join us in continuing activism. And I can't think of any way Ann Wright would probably want to spend her birthday than being involved in activism and continuing to help change the world to be a better place. So for a decade of activism, of your sacrifices that you've made, of resisting the war in Iraq by stepping down from the State Department, by the acts you commit every day towards peace and justice on this planet, we appreciate you. And I think folks have signs that can be displayed. If you Allie, maybe you could share back to the gallery view for a moment and show everybody holding up some signs. I think there's some folks in the audience that just want to wish you a very happy birthday and thank you so much for being on the advisory board of Veterans for Peace and an amazing organizer for Code Pink and probably a million other hats that you wear. And thanks for spending your birthday with us.
Since we don't have Anne, Toby, right now, if you would like to say a few words, that would be great. And then I can get the video.
Yeah. Yeah, because there are at least one person I see, I'm not sure what her knowledge is about drones. She's not directly in the peace movement. She's part of my Scandinavian Dance and Music Society community. And she probably knows a lot, but I don't want to give a full overview about the wrongfulness of the US drone program, but I want to touch on some highlights, which is one thing we have to remember is not only are we killing people remotely from thousands of miles away, that we need to really stop calling it drone warfare, because when you think of warfare, you think of two sides and they're fighting with each other. And in reality, it's really just a program, an assassination program. But the other thing that we have to remember is that these weapons, these drone planes and the missiles that fire from them are targeted on people that are the most disadvantaged people in the world. Afghanistan is first or second poorest country in the entire world. And we've been at war with them for 20 years. We've been droning them for almost as long. And Somalia, Pakistan, the tribal area in Pakistan, these are people who have a lot less resources, a lot less privilege than Americans are. And the other thing I want to emphasize is, as probably most of you know, how covert it is. And if you don't know very much about drones, we encourage you to watch the film National Bird. Maggie's going to talk about that probably a little bit, but that's a really good resource. Every American should see the film National Bird. I understand it's on Amazon Prime. And the drone whistleblower that Maggie's going to talk about is featured in that film, as well as two other whistleblowers that were stationed at Beale Air Force Base in Northern California. Both Creech and Beale play a really important role in the US drone assassination program. And I don't know if Eleanor wants to add a few words. I know Eleanor likes to talk about that it's not really about killing. It's not just about killing, but it's about terrorizing these communities. When there's multiple drone attacks in a community, it causes a lot of fear, anxiety, PTSD. They've lost friends and loved ones, and they're never knowing when missiles are going to fly on them. This is like creating terror. So we see the U.S. as the #1 terrorists in the world, actually. And I don't like to even use that word, but the U.S. is making terror on the world.
Thank you, Toby. And actually, Anne has just joined.
Oh, yay, Anne.
Anne, you missed a little introduction about you and our little happy birthday wishes for you.
Well, thank you. And well, you're so sweet, and my deepest apologies. This has been a very complicated day that I will not go into. And my apologies for being late on this very, very important webinar today. And I thank you for the birthday wishes. You are so kind. You know, the whole issue of Creech drone base is something that we have been a part of now for, gosh, 12 years, as we thank the Shut Down Creech team, Toby, Eleanor, Maggie, and all of the folks who have been so diligent about getting us out to Creech drone base, where we can see what's going on with the Assassin drone program that we all are so horrified about. And you know, starting in 2001, when we first started hearing about the drones and this crazy thing, and you know, it was in 2001, in February of 2001, that the very first drone was actually, weapons were put on it, and then they started using it very quickly thereafter, killing people with it. And the whole aspect of war by remote control, which is essentially what Creech drone base is all about, and what's called now the Enterprise. I don't know if you've you probably haven't gone on the Creech Air Force Base website. I mean, most people don't because we don't really, it's like, yuck. They're calling it an enterprise. That's what the term they're using, the enterprise. And it sounds kind of like the mafia, the mafia. And that's what it really is. It's a killing mafia. And so many people have now, through the awareness that activist groups like Shut Down Creech and the great group there, the Hancock Air Force Base, Shut Down Hancock. We've got people that have been at Whiteman Air Force Base out in Missouri, up in Wisconsin. I mean, trying to alert all of the people all over the United States as to what this means, the killing aspect by remote control of a very small group of people. The Terror Tuesday that we learned about under Obama, where every Tuesday he would pick out some unfortunate soul that name was brought to him on an intelligence list, and he picked out who was going to die by assassin drones. And for us, not only here in the United States, but taking this issue to other countries, it's very important that we've had delegations that have gone to Afghanistan, that have gone to Pakistan, that have gone to Yemen, that have gone to Germany to try to convince the Germans to stop their communications link, which allows all of these assassin drones to kill people all throughout the Middle East and now in North Africa. So the issue of assassin drones has been something that I think we should be very proud that we have challenged them, and that every year, 2 times a year for Creech Drone Base, that Shut Down Creech has taken place with many people coming from all over the country to fly into Las Vegas and then drive the 60 miles out to this isolated place, Creech Drone Base. So it's an important area for us to be aware of and to encourage our friends and neighbors to learn more about. And there are the things that are happening right now that people should be aware of, where we have a young man, Daniel Hale, who is going to be sentenced for his bravery in exposing the drone program. But there have been movies that have been made about this, National Bird, and other documentaries that have been made, books that have been written about it. And yet we find so much of the American public that says, Creech Drone Base, I've never heard of that. And they have no idea that it's remote control, that it's 3,000 people on a military air base that are shooting at people around the world, shooting by remote control. So it is, I'm so happy to be a part of this symposium where we again bring forth the voices of people who have been out to Creech, who have said, I won't be a part of that. Where we've in Las Vegas, where several years ago we had a symposium there where hundreds of people from Las Vegas came to hear about what was going on just 60 miles from their area, sponsored by the University of Nevada Law School. So we are alerting the public, but it doesn't mean that our government is stopping this program. As we well know, the drone program was on steroids under the Obama administration and on double steroids under the Trump administration. We don't even know how many drone strikes there were because the Trump administration decided they would not tell anybody about that program. So we are here with this symposium to offer the voices that you've already heard already in the excellent presentations of our folks who have been out and have testified as to how important these are. So I really appreciate very much you all putting together this program, and or the next visual presentation is on a film called Scenes from Creech, Resisting Drones, One Blockade at a Time.
Can't stand behind it. I just look like something.
I'd like us to hold in our heart these names of these human beings. Some of them, many of them are children. Arrest Colonel Jones, the war criminal, not Daniel Hale, the whistleblower.
Since you have all failed to disperse, we are compelled to make a citizen's arrest of the commander in charge of Creech Air Force Base.
I hereby declare this to be an unlawful assembly. In the name of the people of the United States and the state of Nevada, I command all those assembled at Creech Air Force Base.
The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
Thank you very much. That was that's a very moving series of scenes from the various protests that we have had at Creech Drone Base. But one of the people that has orchestrated all of this and kind of the chief costumer, the chief idea person, not only for Creech Drone Base, but also for Beale Air Force Base, which is in Northern California, where Toby Blome has been one of the relentless people reminding all of us what the tragedy is of these drones. She has taken months and months out of her life to help decide what types of costumes, what types of visuals would be effective in trying to strike at the heartstrings of this. She's a medical professional herself who has a great heart for the whole world. And Toby, we thank you so very, very much for all of the effort that you've put into this, along with the rest of the Shut Down Creech team. Thank you. Toby, please.
Well, thank you, Anne. I'm very touched. Coming from you, it means a heck of a lot. I can say that. And just to let the audience know, Anne Wright has been a regular participant of Shut Down Creech. Not only that, it was her idea back in 2014. She stood up one day when we were all talking. She said, we need to have a national mobilization. We need to get people from all across the country to come to Creech. And we need to shut it down. And it was that expression coming from Colonel Ann Wright that gave me the idea to call it Shut Down Creech. So we owe the name to Ann Wright. So I want to especially express gratitude to everybody over the many years who've come to participate in all these protests that we've organized. I want to say that people have traveled as far as Alaska. One woman came from an island off the coast of Maine, traveled all the way to Creech to participate. We couldn't do this, Maggie and Eleanor and I, if we didn't have these people that sacrificed a lot themselves to be there. And I especially want to express thanks to the veterans. We are so happy when we see so many Veterans for Peace flags waving along the highway, because the military, when they go in, they're going to be more moved by veterans who speak out than we. Moving right along, I want to say that Shut Down Creech is a call for service to our country and to the world. We have to come out of our shells and sacrifice for our brothers and sisters in Afghanistan, in Yemen, and Pakistan, and Somalia, wherever these drones are being used, and stand up for peace and justice. One of my favorite banners that I gave away as a gift in Germany was on big pink fabric called One People, One Earth, Stop Drone Attacks. And we have to unite as a global world. And I loved all the testimonies. Everybody who spoke in the pre-recorded testimonies said so many valuable things. And Shirley especially emphasized that she comes out because she feels it's her duty. And I feel like that's how I feel for me. It's my obligation, knowing that the US government is committing such crimes in the world. We have a responsibility to be there. And it's a national mobilization. So we want people who want to get involved to really help people from all over the country to participate and to try to expand this idea. I think that moving toward occupying military bases everywhere, even in your own neighborhood, it doesn't have to be a drone base, but it's come the time where war is obsolete. We don't have a lot of time left to save the planet, as Susan spoke so eloquently about the devastation of the environment, and the US military uses more fossil fuel than any other institution in the world. So if the US government is really truly wanting to stop this climate chaos that we face, they need to end these wars, and they need to do it right away. I remember as a younger person, people telling me about the firebombing of Japan. And I kept hearing about the firebombing in Japan. It wasn't until I finally saw the film Fog of War, which I recommend everyone see, where the US military set on fire cities all across Japan. And there were, huge percentages, 50%, 60%, sometimes as much as 70, 80% of the civilian population that were killed by these fire bombs. And then the US dropped the atomic bombs on Japan. Totally unnecessary. There's so many long histories of crimes committed by the US government. We know all about the genocide of the Native Americans, occupation of foreign lands. Now with the term being used as extermination. And I see drone warfare as an example of very slow form of genocide on the most vulnerable people of the world. We need to rise up stand up for our brothers and sisters in these countries. But what's most frightening today is that we live in the times where we put journalists and whistleblowers in prison. This is even more serious than ever before. And we need to stand up for Daniel Hale. We need to stand up for Edward Snowden, Julian Assange. And we, going to the military base, one of the things we did last spring is we made a big sign saying, arrest Colonel Jones for war crimes and free Daniel Hale, who exposed war crimes. And what was very interesting, that was a really important message. I didn't realize how important it was because the last couple of weeks of our vigils, the police tried every means to get that sign from us because that sign is so much about the truth. You know, the commander is the criminal. And so it helps to get the military coming into the base who support this horrendous thing called US drone war to really get to thinking. And I wanted to also reflect, one of the things that motivates me to go to the military bases, and I think maybe others too, reflect on 2003 when the US was beating the drum to go to war with Iraq. And millions of people around the world organized marches all over the world, millions, probably more than we even know. Did the US listen to the global world? No, they still went into Iraq. They devastated the country. It's still suffering. And so what I learned from that, I love to be in marches, but I don't think marches are nearly enough. And then I want to reflect on a film called Sur No Sur, which was in the theaters in 2005, which is a film I saw that also influenced my thinking. I highly recommend seeing that film. It's all about the military resistance during the Vietnam War. The underground newsletters they published, the resistance in Vietnam, the resistance at home. It was the military that had, in my eyes, that had the most influence to why those wars ended. The military that had the guts to go AWOL, young men and women that, especially young men that fled to Canada because they didn't want to fight in the war. It's that kind of resistance. And so that's why going to the military bases, as Dave Patterson spoke so eloquently about in his testimony, reaching those young men and women, calling on them to listen to their conscience. That's a really important piece of our work. So now I want to talk a little bit about, the different other reasons why we go. One big reason, and we just touched on the atrocities of drone warfare, is that we need to stand up and express our opposition. It's our duty and responsibility, as I spoke to. I want the people going into that base, both the civilians and the military, to know that you do not have my consent. You do not have our consent to commit these crimes. And even if you're not directly pushing the button, you're still participating and you're complicit. Vera was talking about bringing her voice and saying that how much we have to change these things. Just because they've been around for a while, just because the US spends millions of dollars on the drone program, it needs to change, and it's expanding. So we need more people at these drone bases. Another piece of why we're there is to educate the military. We have banners with thoughtful messages about everything, including the role of the military on the environmental destruction, and many other things. It's not just about the killing that's happening, but the violation on these communities that are under 24/7 surveillance. We are starting to become a country that's also under surveillance by our own country, but these countries are under much more severe surveillance. Our soldiers are are flying those drones, having the cameras, and they're watching people make love to their partners. I mean, what kind of a assault on their privacy is that? I could go on, there's so much to talk about, but we use creative ways to educate. We do street theater. We have funeral processions on the side of the highway. At the end of the week, we always try to end with positive messaging, flights flying in the air. You saw those images in the film, fly a kite, not a drone. We also, equally importantly, want to offer alternatives to the military going into the base. We try to have a banner up that gives the GIRightshotline.org, either the number or the website. Just having a strong Vets for Peace presence with the Veterans for Peace flag so beautifully blowing in the wind gives them an alternative to come on the side of peace. So we do it for the military to help them raise their conscience and to rethink about what they're participating in. We're there for the military. We don't want them killed for wrongful wars. We don't want them fighting in wrongful wars. And all wars are wrong in my eyes, but that's another topic. But more importantly, we also don't want them to suffer the moral injury, the psychic injury, the physical harm, even if they're not killed, that Dave spoke about. So I just wanted to talk just for a minute about the civil resistance. I showed a lot of it in the films that were shown before the webinar and the little film that we showed after that. That is an integral part of Shut Down Creech, but we don't require people to participate in doing civil resistance. But we love people to support us either with jail support or many other ways they can support having direct action. It's a way to step up our resistance against the crimes. And we do it in all kinds of creative ways, as you've seen. And I just want to address one question, one comment. I hear sometimes that people think we're just a bunch of people that like to go to jail. And I want to just say that no. I don't think Ann Wright likes to go to jail. I don't think Maggie or Eleanor like to go to jail, especially in Las Vegas. It's one of the most horrendous jails I've ever been in. No, but we feel an obligation to put our bodies on the line for these really atrocious crimes. I don't look forward to being in Las Vegas jail. It's really painful to see how inhumanely people are treated in our prisons. But it's a way to step up our resistance and to look at the civil rights movement and reflect on that people were willing to ride on the freedom buses, people were willing to sit on the lunch counters. And it was that courage that allowed the success of the civil rights movement. Without those handful of people that were willing to take those risks. So I think we can learn from that history and think about how we can change the world from that. Well, thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Toby. Those are such good reminders of, what it's all about, why we're doing this. And you mentioned going to jail, and we've had several comments that have come in on the chat to remind us of some of the people that have gone to jail, not only for, several hours, maybe overnight, but we've had people that have spent months in jail on the whole issue of assassin drones. We've had Kathy Kelly that's been in jail for 3 months, Brian Terrell. And there's another fellow from Kansas City, and my apologies, I don't remember his name, but he was in jail federal prison for several months. So it's a very good reminder that people are willing to try to, get people energized by this. And I also mentioned that Jack Cohen Joppa, Felice are online, and they have the nuclear resistor, which is probably one of the best places that you can go to find out what acts of courage have happened and who has actually gone to jail for it. They keep a roster of people that you can write to while they're in jail. So Jack and Felice, we thank you so much for that. Our next speaker ties into exactly what Toby was talking about earlier in part of her talk, and that's on soldiers and military who have taken acts of conscience, and people who've been in the military who say, not going to do that anymore. And that's why we have a group that's called Veterans for Peace, and we have another group that's called About Face Veterans Against the War. And then, of course, we have the old timers. Guess I could be a part of that. veterans, Vietnam veterans against the war. But now we have our next speaker is the Executive Director of Veterans for Peace. We are so glad to have Garett Reppenhagen with us. He has taken on a formidable task of trying to corral the cats and dogs and the various elements that make up our wonderful group called Veterans for Peace, both veterans and associates that are willing to work for peace through a veterans organization. Please, Garett.
Thanks so much, Ann. Thanks, everybody. It's great to see so many friends and activists and supporters in the audience today. I am a new Creecher. I'm a proud Creecher. I've just started going to Creech. My first and only time so far was 2019 before this COVID nightmare hit us. And I'm excited to go back this year, this fall. It's going to be just a part of me. And, you know, it only takes one time, I think, to have a really impact on yourself. Not only are you building a mobilization to shut down this drone warfare, these weapons of terror, but there's personal impacts on you if you get involved in this that are really powerful and really life-changing. So I'm excited to go back to this place. And you know, it's strange waking up early in the morning, you know, dark 30. It felt like, at first, it felt like I was getting ready for another military mission. I was about to leave the base that I was stationed in Iraq, and I was about to go out of the wire. You know, my surroundings was the desert of Nevada. It was very similar to the desert in Iraq. And it felt like I was headed out on another sniper mission. You know, I was doing prep and gear checks, and you know, we were doing some planning and group huddles, and talking about the day and the action that we were going to do in the vigil. And I had a sense of that adrenaline that I got. But really, when I was standing out there on the side of the street, and service members were passing me in their cars heading into the gate, reading my sign, I realized that this was a mission of my choosing. It was a mission of my conscience, and it was a mission for peace. And instead of losing my soul on this mission, I was gaining it back. I was restoring some of that karma that I had lost in combat in Iraq. And that's so valuable and so incredible to do. And you know, I feel like, you know, our whole nation shares a bit of moral injury because we're supporting a country. We're involved in this, you know, the economy and the politics that drive this war culture and this entire war apparatus. So we all share a little bit of blame for it. And honestly, if you can move out of your comfort zone a little bit and you know, put some faith in the wisdom of the creatures, and come out and join us, it really is a powerful experience. You know, I think veterans, Toby wanted me to talk about why veterans should join, and it is important. You know, these are service members that are driving onto this base. There's a lot of contractors, civilian contractors too, but many of them are veterans. They have served in the military before taking these contractor jobs in the civilian space. So they're folks that, you know, you never know what's going to impact somebody going on that base, and seeing a fellow service member and a fellow veteran there, I think sometimes impacts folks. You know, obviously I would be impacted if I saw somebody who looked like, you know, my sister and my mother and my grandmother out there as well. I would be impacted, and I would consider morally what I was doing, obviously. But sometimes you never know what's going to affect people, and seeing somebody that looks like a buddy, one of the people that you're serving with out there, is really critical, I think, especially some of the older generation of veterans out there, you know, with the amount of experience that they have with the military and outside of the military, really critical for veterans to show up. And there's this myth that drones are saving service members' lives. And, you know, that's perpetuated throughout the military and even our society. And we know that that's not true. The truth is that the drone warfare, drone terror, is making our lives less safe as service members. It's building this animosity towards the United States that is basically justified. You know, these folks are living in terror all over the world because of our unilateral military aggression from drones. And I have a 6-year-old child, and they have nightmares, and they're afraid of the boogeyman outside and the monsters that don't exist in the bushes in Maine and Colorado. And I can console him, and I can tell them that there are no monsters outside our door in the States, here in the United States. That is an impossible effort for the parents of children in these countries that are impacted by drone warfare. The monsters are there. They've witnessed and seen the destruction themselves. They've seen the aftermath. They've heard the stories from neighbors, from relatives, from friends. They might have lost friends. They might have lost relatives. They might have lost their parents. And they're living under terror for us to psychologically control them, and that's immense harm. And if you're living under harm and oppression for so long, you're going to figure out a way to retaliate from the people that are doing it to you. And that's what's happening. We are creating a recruiting tool to reinforce extreme radical ideologies, and we're making it easier to recruit folks to terror. And that's because we're trying to fight. We're trying to fight this with terror. We're the terrorists. It's state-sponsored terrorists and that terrorism, and that's just how it is. So we have this belief. Toby mentioned serve no serve. We do have this fundamental belief that when service members refuse to fight, wars will end. We've seen it in Vietnam. We've seen it in other conflicts, that the service members put down their weapons and the wars end. And if we truly believe that, then we have to be standing outside the military bases. We have to be where the service members are. We have to connect with them. We have to talk to them, and we have to ask them to stand down. And we're not out there trying to demonize every single service member. We're out there trying to reach them and trying to save their soul, so they could switch sides of the fence and they could be standing there with me at Dark 30 with signs of peace, rather than inflicting harm millions of miles away. So we can save their souls. And I want to reach out to another group of people, is the next generation of creatures, because it's time to pass the torch. It's past time to pass the torch. We have to have young people taking the place and carry on this legacy of protest. So after we shut down Creech, we're going to shut down Beale, and after we shut down Beale, we're going to shut down the next base until there are no more drone bases and there are no more military bases. So we've got to take this on, and it's our responsibility now. Our mentors have carried this as far as they can, and we need to figure out how to move into leadership and take this over, so they know that they can rest, and that folks are going to carry this on. And if we're asking service members to stand down for peace, we have to support them when they do. And Daniel Hale and other service members who refuse to fly drones, refuse to support the drone warfare, and has blown the whistle on what these things do, they need our support. We have to follow through when we ask them to stand down. When they take that courageous step to do what we ask them to do, we have to be there for them when they do it. So let's figure out ways to support Daniel Hale. We're going to hear more about that later in the program. So thank you all, and I'll step back and leave it back to Ann to introduce the next speaker. Thanks, everyone.
Well, thank you so much, Garett. Those were very poignant words from a guy who's been recently in the thick of things for the military, and who has made his decision that thank you very much, but no more. And I'm putting my time in to try to convince other people that are in the military to watch what they're doing, come out of the military. And the other part is trying to stop the recruitment of young men and women. Now there's a movement afoot to draft women as well as men, or have women sign up for selective service. So there's a lot of work that we have to do to get this militarism out of our society, and it's a big, long job. So Thank you, Garrett, for appealing to a younger generation. At 75, I vote for that for sure. Get those young guys and gals in here. Next, we have from the Bay Area, Dr. Eleanor Levine, who is one of the great activists of CODEPINK and many other organizations in the Bay Area, whether it's from food security to personal security against police violence, you name it. There's a demo in San Francisco and Eleanor's going to be there. So Eleanor, please go ahead.
Now that you've heard the 6 testimonials and you've heard from Anne and from Toby and Garrett, and you've seen the video that shows the scenes from Creech, I know that you're all eager to join us at Creech in the fall. So I want to let you all know who are coming in the fall, what to expect. And I want to start by just saying that we're a caring community that welcomes participation. We try our best to include everybody in what we do and to provide a friendly and safe place for all. We work together and we play together. So Camp Justice, which serves as our home base for the week, is about 3 miles from the Air Force Base on the grounds of the Goddess Temple Sekhmet. And because of COVID, we are sleeping there and camping there and holding all our activities, organizing activities and socializing activities outside at Camp Justice, which has all the needed amenities, such as showers, a kitchen, shade, meeting space, and more, so you'll feel comfortable. We encourage participants to stay with us at Camp Justice because it helps us to build solidarity within our Creecher community. And it affords us the opportunity to coalesce as a group, forming stronger friendships and making us more united in our opposition to the drone program. And I just want to say, if you don't want to camp or in a tent or in a camper, you can stay in Las Vegas, but it's about an hour away. You'll have to make your own arrangements. If you're a member of Veterans for Peace, you can work with Casey Steinmetz in finding accommodation in Las Vegas. For those who stay at Camp Justice, we make sure you have a suitable place to pitch your tent or park your camper. We arrange for rides from the Las Vegas airport or from the bus terminal. We've never lost anybody. Nobody's ever missed a flight or a bus. We're really good at this. And we arrange carpools in the morning to and from and the afternoon to and from the base. So everybody has transportation, whether or not you have your own car. And we encourage everybody, regardless of where you're housed, to join us for meals and to hang out at Camp Justice when we're not vigiling. We eat communally at Camp Justice. Fellow creatures pitch in to prepare and plan and cook meals. And we include anybody who's at Camp Justice, whether or not you're staying there or not, and the outings we take between vigils. Now, let me talk a little bit about what a typical day at Shut Down Creech looks like. We have 2 themed vigils. One's at a very early hour of 6:30 to 8:30 in the morning, and the other is from 3:30. Am I meant to say 6:30 to 8:30 in the morning, and the other from 3:30 to 5:30 in the afternoon. And we vigil at the gates to the Air Force Base. And you saw some of the actions that we engage in the film Scenes from Creech. And after breakfast, after the morning vigil, there's breakfast at Camp Justice. Everybody's invited. And then we have a daily planning meeting so that we are on the same page about what it is we want to do. And then the rest of the afternoon until the afternoon vigil is full of a lot of options like napping, resting, reading, playing cards, desert walks, painting signs, banners, or outings like visiting the wild horses in Cold Creek Canyon that Susan talked about in her testimony. And after the afternoon vigil, we have dinner, everybody's invited, and an evening hanging out around the campfire where we do story swapping, singing, dancing, and this year, roasting marshmallows. I'll make sure of that. And I want to say that some of the vigils that we hold are nonviolent direct action, which are planned in advance by the whole group. And although risking arrest during these actions is voluntary, we encourage everybody to play some role in supporting the actions. And as you saw earlier in the scenes from Creech, direct actions take a lot of different forms. And in the past, Creechers who have risked arrest have done so to bring attention to Creech's central role in the drone program and to disrupt the base activities and shut it down, even if it is for a short period of time. Shutting it down however long is important, and getting the people who line up on the street, as you saw in the video, waiting to get in and being forced to find an alternative way into the base, or maybe none at all. Anyway, want to stress that participation in direct action is voluntary. And I want to note that those who have risked arrest in the past, as you saw in the pre-program films and the short video, we support those people. We always provide jail support and legal assistance. Nobody is left on his or her own. And our goal is to keep our Shut Down Creech community safely engaged while challenging the drone program. And we invite all participants who have the capacity and interest to join our Shut Down Creech organizing team to help expand our campaign and to make us even more effective. So we welcome you and hope to see you in the fall. Everybody, we hope to see you in the fall. Our dates are September 26th to October 2nd, the 26th of September till the 2nd of October. Come for the whole week or come for however many days you can. And please visit our Shut Down Creech blog spot. You'll find it somewhere at the end of the webinar. There'll be addresses and in the follow-up. And you'll get more detailed information about what to expect and how to register for Shut Down Creech, because we know you're going to be there in the fall. And I just want to thank everybody for being here today. And I want to give special thanks to CODEPINK National Organization for its continued support of our work, not only at Creech, but elsewhere in the country and just in general around the issue of drone terror and drone assassination. And I want to give a special thanks to CODEPINK National for lending us Ali Hermes, who is moderating or facilitating this program today, because without her leadership, her organizational skills, her wordsmithing, and her technical ability, we would not have this today. So anyway, let's give a round of applause to Ali. Thank you.
Yay. Well, thank you, Eleanor, and thank you, Ali. And it also goes back to what Garett says. We need the younger generation for a variety of things, and certainly on these technical things, that's key. We really do appreciate it. And in my introduction of Eleanor, as you probably gathered, she's one of the real organizers. She's the one that kind of helps make sure that we've got food, that we've got somebody to cook the food, somebody to clean up. She's kind of the keep the volunteers in order. And if we need some more volunteers, Eleanor's voice will be right there to let you know that we need some more help. So we really do appreciate that, Eleanor. And the description of, what goes on, it's fun. It really is fun. We're there for a very serious purpose, but we meet lots of wonderful people and hear the stories of what they do in their lives, and they're activists in their hometowns. And then we have time for great food, great camaraderie. So really, really just, put that schedule on your calendar. So we've heard from Toby and Eleanor, who are two of the big three in terms of the organizers of Shut Down Creech. And now the third person that has been for many years part of the organizational team, from Flagstaff, Arizona, a teacher of long standing and a great activist from Flagstaff. Let's hear from Maggie Huntington. Maggie?
I'm here to speak about Daniel Hale. And here's a little piece of information that you might want to write down while I'm speaking. But it is my pleasure to speak about Daniel Hale. Sadly, much of the public does not even recognize his name or know his story. I encourage you to get to know Daniel Hale. Search Stand with Daniel Hale and watch the documentary National Bird. Daniel Hale is a US veteran who today is sitting in prison at times in solitary confinement, awaiting sentencing. He is awaiting sentencing because he told the truth. Daniel Hale is in prison for telling the truth, which is an unusual thing, maybe. As we know, a person who tells the truth and informs on an organization engaged in an illicit activity is a whistleblower. Daniel Hale is a whistleblower. In this case, the organization engaged in illicit activity is the United States government. Daniel Hale confessed to writing a chapter for the 2016 book titled The Assassination Complex Inside the Government's Secret Drone Warfare Program by Jeremy Scahill, and also for being a contributing writer for a series titled The Drone Papers that you can find in the online publication, The Intercept. In Hale's words, this outrageous explosion of watching, listening, monitoring people, and racking and stacking them on lists, assigning them death sentences without notice on a worldwide battlefield was from the very first instance wrong. In a military document, now this is a military document leaked by Daniel Hale, he states that in a 5-month period in Afghanistan, 90% of the drone victims were civilians. This is from a military document. Hale pleaded guilty to a single count under the Espionage Act, carrying a maximum sentence of 10 years. If he had gone to trial and was found guilty, he would have been looking at 50 years in prison. The Espionage Act was written in 1917 to punish people for leaking secrets to the enemy. Daniel Hale, as we know, did not leak secrets to the enemy. Daniel Hale told the truth to the American public. Under the Espionage Act, he was not permitted to explain his motivation and intent in court, nor could he provide evidence to the court that the drone program killed and wounded large numbers of non-combatants and children. Now, to see for yourself, once again, I'm going to mention national bird. To see evidence of non-combatants killed and injured, watch the documentary National Bird. National Bird not only exposes National Bird not only exposes you to the atrocities that occurred in other countries as a result of our drone program, but also the effects it has on our soldiers. This whistleblower who exposed the US drone program faces 10 years in prison, while US officials who murdered civilians with unmanned drones walk free. And probably not the way we'd like to see this story end. As a young dishwasher in Tennessee, who was afraid he might end up living on the street, Hale enlisted in the US Air Force. At the time, he felt this was the better choice. This, as we know, is referred to as the poverty draft. Hale served in the Air Force from 2009 to 2013. During some of this time, Daniel was an intelligence analyst at the National Security Agency. In this role, he was involved in the identifying of targets for the US drone program. After leaving the military, he began speaking out against the US drone policy. In 2014, his home was raided by the FBI. He was not charged for another 4 years. In 2019, federal prosecutors charged him. A full half a decade after investigation began and 4 years after the publication of the drone papers. Hale's actions are both heroic and laudable. The fact that the government once again seeks to silence a truth teller who exposed its crimes highlights the immorality of the system that Hale and others expose. Please learn more about Daniel Hale. Watch the documentary National Bird, read the drone papers, and most important, search for Stand with Daniel Hale. Right here, Stand with Daniel Hale. You'll find detailed instruction of many things that you can do now to help Daniel. His sentencing date is July 27th. There are things you can do in this short time to help him. And Stand with Daniel Hale tells you some things you can do. You can, anyway, I don't need to list them. It tells you. Okay, remember, and here's the important part. Remember, Daniel Hale is in prison for having told the truth to the American public. There is a new publication just out 2 days ago, July 20th, New York Magazine. New York Magazine, and you can find it online if you just search for New York Magazine, Daniel Hale. It's an in-depth profile of Daniel. It was just released 2 days ago. That's all I have to say, except for remember that Daniel Hale is in prison for telling the truth, and he's looking at 10 years. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Maggie. That was a very poignant history of Daniel Hale. You know, 7 years the government has known about what he's done, and it's very strange that it's taken them 7 years. But as you say, for telling the truth, that's all he did was tell the truth. And we've put into the chat a link to that excellent article that has just come out that's in the New Yorker magazine. So we thank you very much for reminding us of Daniel Hale and all the other people that have gone to jail. In fact, Sherry Moran just put in the chat that Father Louis Vitale would love to be here with us. And you know, he was one of the very first people that got arrested back, I think it was in 2011 at Creech drone base. It was called the Creech.
2009.
2009, okay, that's it. Yeah, the group of, was it 11 people that got arrested?
14.
14, the Creech 14, there you go. Yeah.
And so, you were one of them.
Well, no, I was not one of them, but I did speak it. I spoke at their trial, which meant they got convicted. I've had a 100% rate on all of the trials that I've testified in for the various people that have done various things. And as Bill Quigley, the lawyer who is usually for all of these, he said, well, you have a 100% record and they're guilty, and I'm the lawyer. And but it's what happens at these trials, and the way to get information out about what the issue is, whether it's on assassin drones, whether it's on the horrific US nuclear weapons program, whatever it is, going to trial gives you that opportunity to talk about the issues and to get some publicity for them, which is it. So now we've heard from all of these excellent panelists, and we thank you all very, very much for your insight into various aspects of the drone program and our need to mobilize our fellow citizens. So thank you all very much.
I think Vera had to get off the call, but she has a lovely song that we wanted to play as Eleanor has a question.
Well, I have a question, but I just want to say something that occurred to me as I was listening to Maggie speak about Daniel Hale and the Espionage Act, which is about leaking secrets to a foreign country or to an enemy. And I guess, you know, I never looked at it. It just sort of popped into my brain. Our government must see us as the enemy, because Daniel Hale and Julian Assange and others who've been charged under the Espionage Act have released information that's informing the public, and they're being charged for informing the public, which must mean that we are the enemy. That's a interesting thought.
I like that, Eleanor.
You know, and that's what our programs do. They make more enemies out of people.
I see a good question by Liz Carson in the chat. She's asking, how do you carry a lot of camping equipment on a train from Wichita, Kansas to Las Vegas, Nevada? Eleanor, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, Liz, why don't we just email back and forth to each other and I can explain how you can do that. We can help you with that. You can just get yourself a nice duffel bag, and if it becomes onerous, we can help you by finding a tent for you or some of the other equipment that you might need. So if you want to come, just email to us and we'll help you problem solve. That's what we're here for.
And I wrote down that Liz also asked in the chat earlier about if there were any events ever at Whiteman Air Force Base. I think hopefully I wrote that down correctly. And do they use drones? Does anyone know or familiar? Anne?
Yes. Well, there is a peace group in Kansas City, Missouri, who has organized most of the drone protests. They've also organized protest against the creation, the building, construction of one of the 2 new nuclear trigger plants in the country, which is located in Kansas City. I'll look up the email for the group in Kansas City. They do organize things, and they'll be thrilled to have your interest in them.
Great.
I do want to add that I believe it was Whiteman Air Force Base that Brian Terrell, a wonderful activist from Iowa, was sentenced just doing a very peaceful, nonviolent protest of drones on that base. He was sentenced to, I can't remember, it was 3 months or 6 months. I want to say 6 months, but
he had 6 months, and Kathy Kelly had 3 months, and all they did was take one step off an arbitrary line. They didn't even get onto the base. They just stepped across an arbitrary line, and they got he got 6 months in federal pen. I've also put in the chat, you know, we have a new website for drones called Ban Drones, and Nick Modron, who's on this call right now, who created this, has put a profile up for a lot of people who have gone to prison for challenging these drones. So it's an excellent website to look at, and maybe Nick would want to talk about it in a minute.
I would like to add also that it's really a huge variation in how the military and the US government responds to arrest at drone bases, because at Creech, in the last many years, none of us have served any jail time, even though we are repeatedly blocking the entrance into the base, where Kathy and Brian, on the other hand, just walked in peacefully to cross the line. I don't know if they were blocking traffic. I don't think so, but it couldn't have been for very long if it's just the 2 of them. And in New York at Hancock, some people have served, you know, multiple days in prison. So, but at Beale in the recent years, in California and in Nevada at Creech, no prison time, and we usually end up not even having to show up for a arraignment. It's quite amazing. The citations are dropped. I think they're trying to keep the covert wars as covert as they can. So if we have a trial, it brings it out to the public. So it's all the more reason why we should definitely upgrade our resistance and not be afraid. Face the belly of the beast.
Great. I'm going to unmute Jules, and they have a question for you all. If you could unmute yourself, Jules, and well, thank you. Awesome.
Okay, what's the weather like? What should I pack as far as clothing goes?
I'm sorry, I was putting something in the chat. Who asked that question?
My name is Jules. I'm from Veterans for Peace.
Oh, okay. We have a letter that we send to people about what to bring, and we'd be glad to send it to you. And it just gives you all the details about bringing sunscreen and, you know, blah, blah, blah. So I think that's the best way to handle it. Does that work for you?
And it will be
Sure
fall.
does. Thank you.
It'll be fall in the desert, and it is beautiful.
Yeah.
And
It's warm during the day, but cold at night.
Love, yeah, the weather is beautiful.
Cold in the morning at 6 in the morning. Your hands and head and feet will get cold if you don't have something on them. And
Right.
they'll roast you
I've
to
forgotten.
death.
Yeah.
It's true, but we will send out a letter to anybody who's interested in coming to Creech. Or if you have questions, just, I put my email in the chat, and maybe Toby will put hers in there, and you can just send us a little email and we can get that letter to you sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and I'll be sending out a follow-up after the webinar in a day or two, and I'll make sure to include everyone's contact information, and then any other questions, there'll be links for you to find those answers as well. Thank you so much, Jules. Oh, we had another raised hand, but it disappeared. Hopefully you got your question answered. Oh, there's Jackie again. Jackie, do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Yes, thank you. So my question is really around strategies coming out of all the organizing that you've been doing at Creech. So on Tuesday, there was a strike against the Shabab in Somalia. It was the first time that in the Biden administration that there was a drone strike in this African nation. My question is when people hear about drone strikes, their sense is that it's better than boots on the ground. It's often the response that people have who are not educated about drones. So my question is, how do we address issues around what is better or worse? And my other question is and these are really big questions, and I would like just some of your thinking on it, because you really are so close to the issue. Is we now have to get reporters to ask about the collateral damage. I mean, to do justice to Daniel Hale's case, we have to have reporters who are hosted by the Pentagon at press conferences to ask the Pentagon official, well, what did the drone meet its strike target in Somalia on Tuesday? And if not, then what is the collateral damage? So how do we take the lessons from Creech and out into the world?
Well, I'll just respond. There's a lot of questions in your question there, Jackie. They're really good questions, and probably takes time to give a full answer. But what I like to say is that, in terms of saving lives, we won't have injured and dead soldiers if we stopped sending them to foreign lands to fight unjust wars. So they're much safer to just stay home. And I wanted to address Somalia because we don't get good media coverage of our drone strikes. It's very secret. And once in a while, a story breaks and it's over. A huge massacre or a tragedy happens. And then the Americans forget about it, or they didn't even notice. But in Somalia, I'm aware of at least 2 occasions where the US fired drone missiles into a gathering of Al-Shabaab militants and killed 100 or 150 at a time. It was like huge numbers, dozens at a time, happened at least 2 or 3 times. And I don't have any strong feelings toward Al-Shabaab one way or another. I don't know a lot of their history of how they formed, but what I do know is when you murder human beings, because they all have family, they all have parents and children and aunts and uncles, they have families. And so what is that telling the people of that country when you just massacre huge numbers, even if they are, quote, militants? So it's just not the way to make the world a better place.
I think to address your question also, from what Ray said, Ray mentioned there are more than 20 veterans a day that commit suicide. Now, we don't see their names on the front page of the paper like we should, but if one soldier dies in Afghanistan, we see his name. We should have listed every single day on the front page of our newspapers all the veterans that commit suicide every single day. It's more than 20. So we may not have boots on the ground, but our soldiers are dying, and they're dying in an ugly way when they commit suicide. Also, if you have your friends watch National Bird, you'll see what this long distance warfare does to our soldiers, along with what it does to the people in all the countries.
Yeah, and I just want to add that the problem of media coverage is a very difficult one. It's very hard to get the media to cover things. And the article that just came out in the New York Magazine was 2 days ago, was one of the first main media coverages of Daniel Hale. He's just been totally ignored. It's a real problem. And it's not just for the drone movement, the anti-drone movement, but for everybody who wants to get the real news to people. The sensationalized stuff makes the news. And it's one of the reasons that people engage, as we do, in direct actions, because that's what the media will cover. And it's a sad state when that happens. But it is a problem for all progressive movements and for all things that are going on.
For those of us that lived the Vietnam War, you turned on the news at night and they showed scenes from that war. And as a result, the people watching, the people who are going to be drafted, they went out and marched against that war. So as a result now, for some reason, our press doesn't let us know every single day who we're killing, where we're killing. And that's because if we don't know, if you talk to your neighbors, there's so many of your neighbors that they don't even know we're at war. People don't even know we're at war. So the publication of what's going on is a major, major issue.
Silence. The American public has been silenced, and it's something we really need to struggle against, because silence just leads to destruction, fascism, and so on. But we need to speak out against the silence.
Great, thank you, Jackie, and thank you, everybody. We have a question from David here. If you want to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hello, everyone. This is David Hartsoe, and Jan and I were arrested in 2009 at the Creech, and had the privilege of spending a night in the wonderful Las Vegas jail, which was not quite so wonderful. And we're deeply appreciative of all the work that all of you and many others have been doing, both at Creech and Beale and other drone bases around the country. And I guess I have two questions. One is, have we found people in the Las Vegas area that want to join us or be a part of this campaign? And at Livermore Labs here, where over 1,000 of us were arrested back in '82. That inspired local people in the Livermore community to begin a local campaign, where not just a couple times a year, but on a daily basis, they could continue work there. And so, and the second question is around Daniel Hale. I imagine there's things on the website, but what are the things that people can do between now and next week, which could possibly influence, show how many people care and support him? But second, if he is given a major sentence, whether people consider the possibility of actions at drone bases all over the country and maybe all around the world, where people do actions in response to that.
I'd like to answer that question, David, because I'm organizing. Eleanor misspoke about the date of the protest at Beale. We're actually going to do it on Tuesday. I wrote it in the chat, Tuesday the 27th. Some of us are going to go up Monday night, the day before his trial. We're going to be at Beale and doing a direct action in the morning on the day of his trial. And by the time we get released, we'll probably be cited and released within an hour or two. That's usually what they do. Within a few hours, we should know what the sentencing is. It was reported in Democracy Now! They're planning on, the prosecuting attorneys are asking for nine years. He already served a number of months. So they're almost giving him the full maximum that they could for the charge that he's given. So yeah, we would love you to come up to Beale. We'll help you arrange rides so you don't have to drive a car. And then, yeah, it's a really good idea to organize protests at drone bases across the country. As far as Las Vegas goes, we have tried over the years to get interest in the local community. And we have reached a few people, but we haven't been very successful. We do have some local activists like Vera, who was given a testimony today. She's from Las Vegas. Unfortunately, the problem with young people is they work, and we do our actions on Monday through Friday because that's when the military come in with floods, thousands of cars from Las Vegas, where on the weekends it's pretty quiet. There are drone pilots that come to work on weekends, but the vast majority of the personnel on the base have the weekends off. So it's hard to get young people to take time off work. I understand they have their bills to pay and families to support. Ellen or Ann, did you want to add?
Yeah, go ahead, Ann.
Well, I think it is time that maybe for the next time that we're there in September and October to reinstate having a symposium at the law school and try to get some of the students that are there. We did have a very successful symposium. It was probably 10 years ago, but trying to get something on the university campus. And we also did sponsor the play that was about drones and Creech drone base. And I think it was given 2 or 3 different times in the Las Vegas area. And each time it got 50 or 60 people out. So I think maybe expanding our windows of opportunity to include the university campus, and maybe even seeing if we can have that play put on again, and then focusing, of course, on Daniel Hale's sentence. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to add that one of the things that we need to do is to work more closely with Garett and Veterans for Peace, because is Garett still there? Garett, are you here?
I'm here.
Yeah. Okay, well, wherever you are, as long as I hear your voice,
Yeah.
because down here it could be up there on my screen. But anyway, we need to work more closely because I know there is a Veterans for Peace chapter in Las Vegas. And at least the last time we were all there, there were some veterans who came to the Nellis Air Force Base action. And so we really need to work hard to, Nellis Air Force Base is right in Las Vegas. We had an action there, and there were people from the VFP chapter who came. So we really need to connect with them and see if we can't get some support. The other thing that's hard for us is that Creech is an hour north of Las Vegas. So it's hard to get people to come up from Las Vegas to Creech. And that's just hard. And the vigil hours are not conducive to participation. The shift changes are from 6:30 to 8:30 in the morning and 3:30 to 5:30 in the afternoon, which is why we vigil at those times. That's when the most traffic comes in and out of the base. And people don't want to get up to get there at 6:30. You have to get up there at 5:30 to get there at 6:30. And if you're working, it's hard. And there's a huge amount of traffic, but I think that we need to work a little harder to contact the Veterans for Peace folks. And we have tried to contact some of the activist groups in Las Vegas, but that's not been very successful. You know, I tried to get in touch with a bunch of groups and never got responses. I get a, yes, we'll follow up, and then nothing happened, you know, no matter how many times I tried. But we're open to suggestion if anybody has an idea. If you know people in Las Vegas, let us know. We can start
And
there.
we need volunteers to work on these different parts, because the three of us have a lot of responsibility as is. So if we can have volunteers that will help reach out to people in Las Vegas and try to build more local community to support our actions at Creech, that would be great.
There is a Franciscan center that Louis Vitale used to be at in Las Vegas that you could contact. And I think there is also Quakers in Las Vegas.
Franciscan Center.
Are you referring to Nevada Desert Experience, David?
That's the Nevada Desert Experience has or had an office at this Franciscan Center, which is right in Las Vegas.
Yeah, because we do work with NDE, but they've shrunk in size and support. And what was the Quakers?
We can look into it.
Real quick, I did post in the chat a link from the CODEPINK website, codepink.org/Daniel Hale letters. And that is a web page that has step-by-step how you can send letters to Judge O'Grady, who is presiding over Daniel Hale's sentencing. So you could send those letters directly to the judge using the instructions on that link if you're interested. And Ann Wilcox, if you would like to ask a question.
Hello, everyone, and happy birthday to Ann Wright, the other Ann. I had a question either for Ann or Garett. The entire drone program is a classified program. Do you think that's sustainable over time, just in terms of military policy, that it can be completely classified? And also, how many of the strikes are signature strikes as opposed to targeted strikes, if you know? Thanks.
Go ahead, Garett.
I don't know the answer to the percentages. Honestly, don't. You know, I knew they do a lot of cross triangulation with cell phone numbers and other things that are just really, you know, not accurate. And it's pretty awful. The way you get on some sort of kill list is not because you did anything wrong. It's more like guilty of association, even if you don't actually even know the people that you're directly connected to. You just happen to call the wrong two people in in the world at one point in time. But yeah, it's as far as classification of the drone stuff, I mean, it could go on forever. You know, it's really up to public pressure that's going to change it. The military is not going to change it, no matter how much gets exposed and how much we learn about the actual activities of the drone programs, without outside pressure, it's not going to change. We've seen that with just about every, classified program the military has, and there's so much we still don't know about it, and we'll never know. So, yeah. And you got any fill-in?
Sure. Well, while it's officially classified, it's unofficially not classified. If you go on the Creech drone base, you're going to learn a hell of a lot about drones. Like now they've posted a nice little fact sheet that says drones can land anywhere. They now have the technology that they don't have to be brought back to airfields where they already have the coordinates and they've already made things. Now they're preparing for war in the Pacific areas where they can land on small little islands. And so now they have this press release that says they have an automated takeoff and landing capability. It's amazing what the military puts out there. If you go on their Twitter feeds, I think part of it is that they are telling, it's their way to signal to the Chinese, to the Russians, to everybody else what capabilities they have and watch out for them. But they also put on some very interesting stuff, like a lot of the communications apparently between drones are not just on military satellites. Now there are some articles that are talking about the use of commercial satellites and saying, well, this may be a little bit of a security hazard for us. And when I read it, was like, well, yeah, it sure as hell is. And maybe I'll give some money for us going after that weakness in it. So there's a lot of stuff that's out there. And when you look at what the drone papers that Daniel Hale put out, so much of that was really unclassified stuff. It may have had a classification on the top part of it saying secret, but when you really got into the guts of it, it wasn't. It was out there. As far as now, us knowing whether they're signature strikes, targeted strikes, we don't know anything. We are much more in the dark than we were during the Obama era.
Thank you, Anne, for your question. And I will.
Could we ask Nick Modron? He's here and he is such a great person with drones. Could we have him talk for a minute about his new website and all the ban the drones?
Sure, Nick, if you're still on, if you want to unmute yourself.
Yes. Thank you. I've been following this conversation closely, and I think some of the questions that have been raised could be answered by reading a section of our website, Ban Killer Drones. The section is called Dangers. And there's also a section called Proliferation. Kathy Kelly, Brian Terrell, and Chelsea Feria, who was on the CODEPINK delegation to Pakistan. And I think you were on that too, if I'm not mistaken. In January, really discussed and then started this campaign called Ban Killer Drones. And the purpose of it is to try to achieve an international treaty that would ban weaponized drones and police and military drone surveillance, because drone assassination, drone attacks are intimately, obviously connected with drone surveillance. And on this website, you'll find quite an extensive discussion of the very wide and indiscriminate harm, unacceptable harm done to civilian populations who are living under drones, not just, the military, US, Obama. They talk about precision, making you think that a drone is like a bullet in the head of a bad person. But not only does a drone use Hellfire missiles that are intended for tanks, trucks, and buildings to attack people, but anyone who's living in a community where there has been someone killed by a drone lives in great fear. And it is a weapon of terror, and it's intended to be so. So these are some of the things that you'll find on this website that I think will be very helpful when people question you, in the way, raising some of the questions that have been asked this evening. But if any of you have any questions about what we're up to, I'd be happy to answer. I think our biggest challenge right now is to make contact with people in other countries, to ally with, and to also make contacts within the United Nations. And we have some ideas about doing that. But it's a complex problem in terms of actually achieving a treaty, but it's other treaties like the landmine treaty, the cluster bomb treaty, have been based on testimonies of people who have been harmed by those weapons. And we wish to have weaponized drones be put in the same category as cluster bombs and landmines, which cause indiscriminate harm to civilians. I should say too that Richard Falk, who's very noted international expert in international, expert in international law from Princeton, professor emeritus, wrote a very long article, essay, saying that armed drones are actually and may be more dangerous to international order than nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons haven't been used, but the use of drones has broken down and challenged international law in many ways that the U.S. and lawyers working for the U.S. government have very, cleverly defended drone attacks against charges of war crime violation. And in this website, under the dangers section at the end, you'll see arguments that are endorsed by Ann Wright and by Richard Falk, arguments that indeed armed drones do violate international law, contrary to what the United States has tried to represent. Thank you.
Terror maker, Reaper man. Over Pakistan, shoot from a distance, win minds and hearts, sending a message with body parts. Can't you see you're murdering me? Can't you see you're murdering me?
drone strikes will be as much a characteristic of the Obama presidency as Obamacare or receiving racist email forwards from distant relatives.
So there's always a risk that they could do something completely different and we could have a trial, we could have to come down for a trial and all that. For some people that might be important and some people not. But so is there, for those people that arrived today, knowing that without having any knowledge of what we have planned, is there anybody that is at least tentatively thinking about participating in risking an arrest activity tomorrow to show a strong voice against drone warfare and what we're doing? Is anybody able to and wants to at least consider it?
Those who are thinking of getting arrested would try to deliver the letter by hand to the base commander. And that would mean entering the base and crossing a line of arrest.
Okay, shoot. So, do we want to start with Dear? Sure, Dear, whoever you are. Commander, and then comma, President Barack Obama, comma.
What'd you say?
Ride money.
What time are we looking at right now?
These are memorial drones to the innocent victims of drone strikes. You know, the drone strikes that, you know, they missed their target, or they being our U.S. pilots had wrong information about what the target was. Turned out to be, you know, a kid's birthday party, a wedding party, you know, the family goat in some cases.
Okay. So tell someone to come get me.
Okay.
Won't we all be let out at the same time?
Usually,
Good.
but you never really know what's...
360-477-8778.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, everybody will have a number, and one person will probably be coming to get, or two.
Everyone.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
This is
And
one
have you
of my
been
friends- I've never-
addressed? I mean, addressed. Have you been
No, I've
arrested
never
before?
been arrested before.
Okay. Have you
So-
been trained in, you know,
No.
getting?
She doesn't know anything
about that. She doesn't
No,
know.
and getting what?
Hi, we're just getting ready to send that.
You want a trainer?
Okay.
But if you,
Toby's the leader.
she's not quite ready, so if you.
Okay, okay.
I don't.
Train
Toby
her.
and Lisa, we figured out that Fred's going to take responsibility for
This
the
is
car,
a cool move to get.
right? Yeah.
Oh, definitely. It's gonna
If I'm available, I will. If not, I will.
Are you gonna be? You need a vest or something?
No, I'm plenty warm.
Okay. Have you gone through nonviolence training? Have you gone through any nonviolence training?
No, but I'm really nonviolent.
Yeah, I know. I'm not really concerned about you
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Just
I'm
what
not
to
gonna.
expect. Do you
I'm
have
not
any
gonna
questions?
do anything to get myself in trouble. That's
This is
for
your
sure.
first time. I
Yeah.
didn't realize that.
Poor baby.
Very brave of you, especially at Creech Air Force Base.
Oh,
So,
Toby, what is it you need for someone to talk to the media?
So
Do you
Maggie,
have someone?
do you have
yeah.
any?
Do you want to be that person?
questions?
I'll do it
I
if
don't
nobody
think
else
so.
wants
I
to.
just-
I reached quite
I'll
a few
probably
media,
just keep my
local
mouth
media,
shut.
But these
Yeah.
are the.
one
What made you change your mind to maybe get arrested?
I don't know. I have no idea. I just that the last time I was here, I wanted to do it, so I'm just kind of going through with it.
And why is it worth the sacrifice, the hard, potentially very difficult day to you?
That's a good question. I don't know that it. Hopefully, it has some effect. Maybe if we keep annoying long enough, we'll be noticed. That's about the only thing I could think of.
We're doing a really important, awesome thing, and you guys are awesome activists, and I'm so proud to be here with you and to remember that the ritual that we did in the temple last night that helped us get grounded in what we're here for, and when you're feeling a little nervous or scared or whatever, to think about Candace and what she was helping us get in touch with to keep us calm and nonviolent and powerful and effective.
Marcus is already there,
Oh, Marcus is already there. We better head out there.
and he says there are lots of counter protesters.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Great fun.
Boy, got pretty in pink today, huh?
These are drone victims on these individual. These are victims of drone strikes. Children mostly.
Okay.
Innocent.
No problem. How are you?
Can I give a gift to you?
It's on my chest.
Stop.
Okay, you can get up the road just a little bit. I understand your pain. Go right over here, okay? Thank you. You bet.
This is can move.
War isn't saying you all know it.
There are peaceful uses for drones, which, you know, okay, I get that. Fighting forest fires, great idea for drone usage. Search and rescue missions, great. But not to drop bombs on innocent civilians. And when you hear people say, oh, our soldiers are doing this for your freedom, what? You know, a free country is based on laws that, you know, right to judicial process, the right to, you know, be proven, you know, to have your case tried in front of a court of law. And that's not happening with drones, and that extrajudicial nature of it, I think, is something that is important to let people hear about.
The indictment reads, in part, drone strikes supported, ordered, and executed by the CIA are a deliberate illegal use of force giving material support to the drone program. The individuals named in this complaint are violating the United States Constitution, dishonoring their oath, and committing war crimes. We demand that the CIA and the U.S. Air Force stop immediately and end all drone attacks.
Colonel Ed Wright getting arrested to close Creech Air Base down.
Yeah!
Shut down Creech.
Tally getting arrested for many times in a row here at Creech.
Shut down Creech. Shut down Creech.
Barry,
thanks.
From Sacramento here to shut down Creech Air Force Base.
Shut down Creech.
Rob Wolf from Fairbanks, Alaska, here to shut down Creech Air Force Base.
The name of the people of the United States and the state of Nevada. Command all those assembled at Creech Air Force Base to immediately disperse and leave the area. If you fail to disperse immediately, you may be arrested or subject to other police action.
We are the
Other
people.
police action could include the use of force, which may inflict significant pain or result in serious injury.
God bless you, Louis.
No, Louis.
Barry, go, brother. Go with God.
I got him. No West Valley men, women, and children in Boston. All right, Chris. All right, Chris. Thank you, Ann. Thank you, Ann.
showing?
It's Code Pink doing the action.
Your dispersal time has expired. You are now subject to arrest.
On his way to play soccer with his family.
Now, the United States increasingly relies on drones to conduct surveillance and launch lethal strikes abroad. But what many may not realize is that most of the drones are controlled from a military base in Indian Springs, Nevada. Personnel at the Creech Air Force Base are responsible for drone operations in Afghanistan and Pakistan, sending their commands via transatlantic fiber optic cables to Germany, where they are then transmitted to drones via satellite. Now, on Wednesday night, a group of 20 anti-drone protesters gathered at Creech, demanding that the facility be shut down. The group says that 5 of their members were able to penetrate the base, delivering a letter to the base commander after being met by heavily armed military personnel. And the protest came the same day that a Las Vegas judge dropped charges against 14 anti-drone activists who were arrested for protesting outside of Creech last March. Joining us now with more is one of the protesters who took part in both actions, Mauro Oliveira. Mauro, thank you for joining us today.
It's really good to be here, and thank everybody for your work.
And so tell us a little bit about Wednesday's action and what the reason was for it, and if you consider it a success.
Wednesday's action was at the end of 3 days of trials at Las Vegas courts, which go back to the March arrest of 34 activists that range from 14 years old to 80 years old in a gathering at Creech Air Force Base that we called Camp Justice. And the Nevada Desert Experience, Veterans for Peace, Code Pink, Catholic workers, many people of clergy, and I think the elder priests were 80 years old. And there were women priests there too. There was over 150 people there, and after a week of protesting, there was the arrest of 34 of us. And through different procedures of law, we ended up with 14 in court this week in 3 days of trials, which the first trial was Friar Jerry Zawada, who's in his 70s. And the government failed to produce their case that the chain of command from the government to Las Vegas Metro Police was properly done. So they lost the first case, and then the next 13 were dismissed over the next 3 days. So that's good for us, but it doesn't bring drones on trial, which is why we do this, why we protest, why we get arrested. So law enforcement that we're not going to stop until this program is done. Drone assassinations are illegal. Most of the world hates us for this, and we are creating more enemies with it, and we could go all into that. But on Wednesday night, we marched with about 20 of us towards the gate of Creech Air Force Base for about 800 feet or so with a loud bullhorn after dark. And we were really surprised that no one came to greet us. And we got as far as the white line that we had been arrested for at Beale, or I'm sorry, at Creech in March. And we got past that line, we got all the way to the gate and still no one was there. So we walked into the base.
We are part of the International Peace Patrol.
We are part of the International Peace Patrol.
Creech Air Force Base,
Creech Air Force Base,
through its participation in the U.S. drone assassination program,
through its participation in the U.S. drone assassination program,
is in direct violation of the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, Articles 3, 7, and 10.
Article 3, 7, and 10.
As an active member of the United States Air Force,
As an active member of the United States Air Force,
your duties indirectly support the illegal activities taking place on this base. Therefore, you are complicit in crimes against humanity being committed here.
Therefore, you are complicit in crimes against humanity being committed here.
If you fail to comply with the order to disperse, you will be trespassing against the human rights of the people of Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Pakistan, Libya, and Somalia, who are victimized by U.S. drones. Therefore, I order you to disperse. You have 5 minutes.
If you fail to disperse immediately, you may be arrested or subject to police action. Further police action could include the use of force which may inflict significant pain or result in serious injury. Nevada Revised Statute 203.020 prohibits remaining present at an unlawful assembly. You remain in the area just as described. Regardless of your purpose, you will be in violation of Nevada Revised Statute 203.020. Following routes of dispersal are available. Turn around, back up the access road to US 95, then cross US 95 to the south side. You have 5 minutes to disperse.
We are concerned that all international laws are being upheld. We call on all personnel at Creech Air Force Base to either stand down or to assist us in making this arrest to protect the global community. Since you have all failed to disperse, we are compelled to make a citizen's arrest of the commander in charge of Creech Air Force Base. At the top of the chain of command, Colonel Case Cunningham has the highest responsibility to ensure laws are being upheld.
Looking down the streets of plenty, I see a haggard boy. He ain't had much to eat now. He got no bed to sleep in. Why come this class division? All our souls be idling in remission. Pretend we just don't see it. Pretend we really don't feel it while our taxes feed a war machine. Our taxes feed a war machine. Our taxes feed a war machine. Taxes feed a war machine. one stealth bomber. Just give me my very own drone. I don't want very much now. Just a little tank for my belly. I don't want very much now. Just a little shield for my head. I don't want very much now. Just a little love instead, but no taxes feed a war machine. 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 Chose my fate. I tried to use my bootstraps, but they get so thin they break. Come on, you great big spenders, send some software my way, my way. Looking down the streets of plenty, I see a callous nation while our taxes feed a war machine. Our taxes feed a war machine. Our taxes feed a war machine. Taxes feed a war machine. Our taxes feed a war machine. Our taxes feed a war machine. Our taxes feed a war machine.